Safari, obviously, we've used this a lot. This is our web browsing tool. And I pulled up a website here that I was using in a class a few weeks ago. This is a National Geographic website about volcanoes. And I was working with the children who were about they'll come to the end of the topic, but they were going to summarize their knowledge by making a video in iMovie. And to do that, we wanted to start writing our scripts. So we were going to create our list of facts. We were using a pen and paper, and we're using this website to find the facts. So the children were independently looking for their information and working through what could be the key points that they could use for their script. We're then going to go into pages to turn it into a full script. But as we were using this website, we started to discover that it's great in terms of the content, but it got quite difficult to use because as we scroll through it, straight away we get little pop-ups appearing. Can we use this? We've got our email address in here. We've got adverts for, in fact, I was trying to sell Rolex watches when we were doing it with the children. There's all sorts of pop-ups, and the website became quite difficult to use. So there are a few things that we can do here just to make these sorts of resources much more accessible for the children. And the first thing I'm going to do is have a look up in the top of the address bar. So in my address bar, where I've got the www bit, nationalgeographic.com, I get this little symbol in the left-hand side, the kind of square with the two lines underneath it. And you'll find this on every website. And if I tap on there, it gives me a few options here. Now, I've got a summarize option here. If you've never done this before on a Mac, if you're trying this now, you will have the option to turn this summarize button on, and it will summarize, AI will summarize the content of the website, which for us as teachers, that can be really quick and handy for us to find out what the website is about. But we do have a few other options here. If we have a look firstly at the website settings, you'll notice I've got the option here to enable content blockers. So that will reduce some of the pop-ups that we get in there. So we can think about the things that we have there. And I've also got the option to use the reader when available. Well, we haven't turned the reader on yet, but that's a useful one to know it's there. So whenever we go back to this website, if the reader is available, it will let us use it. So what is the reader? Well, I've got a big button here that says show the reader. And if I'm looking at the content on my website, there's an advert in the middle of it, but I've got a fairly clear website at the moment. There's another advert there. Some websites are much more distracting. This one's not too bad, but that button there changes the way my website displays. Notice it's now removed all those adverts. Any extra headings have gone. Any sidebars will have gone. Any of those adverts, they've all disappeared, but it has got the main content and it has got the images there on the website. So I've got a really nice clear view of the website. And because I've got the summary turned on, it is showing me the summary down the right-hand side of the screen as well. Now, I also have a few other options. Now I've got the reader view turned on, I can change the color. I can just change the background color. And sometimes having a white background and black text isn't necessarily the easiest way for a lot of children to read a lot of text on a screen. Sometimes having a gray background and lighter text, it's just more accessible. It's easier for the children to read. But you have these options so you can experiment with which one works best for you. Similarly, you can change the font. So you might find fonts with the nice serif on there, these things like Times New Roman or this Georgia font here, they're a bit more tricky to read. And just having a simpler, plainer font sometimes is more useful. So we don't get a huge list of fonts. It's a web font, but we can clarify the way that the website is being displayed. We've also got an option to change the size of the text as well. And when I want to go back to the original page, I just hide the reader and it takes me right back to that original layout of the website. Now, that works for most websites. It doesn't work for every website. It purely depends on how the website has been made. And what it's really doing is looking for the body content and pulling that out and hiding everything else. So just an example, I'm here on the BBC News website. Let's go to the home screen at the moment. So just as a website layout, this is a fairly horrible layout. We've got menus, we've got sub-menus, we've got third menus, we've got cluttered bits all over the place. And if I go to the reader option, I'll still get a summary. I'm not sure what it's summarizing there. It's picking out bits and pieces of the story because there's so much going on here. But I don't have that option for the reader view. It's just not there because even the website's going, well, there's no body content. Which bit of the website are we actually looking at? But if we pick one of the stories, let's go for the one about the weather today because it is a a really hot day of the year. Still got that messy layout, but look, there's that story. There's the main content of the website. And if I go back here, I've got the reader option there. And the summary this time is just giving me the headline on this page. But there's a much easier to read version of that cluttered website. Really does make a difference to how we can view the website. Now, one of the other things that we can do, if you found a website that's not available, we don't have the reader view available, we have this option now with the latest Mac OS here to hide distracting items. So if this website doesn't work with Reader, I can actually just go through, and as I roll my mouse over these different aspects of the web page, notice it's highlighting them. So if I think this whole menu along the top with these 3 layers of menus is difficult to read, I can just dissolve it. It just hides out and it kind of disappears. So I can just say I don't want these top stories either. Just gets rid of them. And any of those elements, I can kind of customize what we're doing. It will always tell me in the address bar that I've got some hidden items with this little icon here. So I can always bring them back. I can always go back to the original, but it is quite nice to be able to customize the layout. If I cancel it, I'll go straight back to where I was. Okay, let's jump back over to our volcanoes. And there is one last nice trick here. And this works particularly well if you've got any EAL children in the classroom. So if you've got children who are English isn't necessarily their first language, in that interim period, sometimes it is quite nice to be able to translate some of these resources. And I can translate this website into pretty much whichever language I want. And we can do it instantly. And again, looking up at my address bar, I've got this symbol up here, which is a translation option. Now, you may not have this at the moment because the translation options, if I tap on that, it's giving me the option to translate to German, or I could go back to English. I've got these 2 options here. That's because all of the translation on a Mac is linked back to the keyboard. So before we do that, let's jump into our settings and just have a quick look where these are. So the settings on our Mac, let's have a look. I'm in the general category at the moment. I'm going to scroll down towards the bottom. It's the 4th one from the bottom, which is keyboard. And we'll come back here again later on for something else. But for the moment, I've got lots of options here of how I can adjust how the keyboard works. I can change the keyboard key press rate and double press and all that kind of so on. But in the middle, we've got the option for text input. And I've got 2 keyboards set on mine. I've got British and German. And that's why I have the option to link the translation to English or German. If you want to add a new keyboard, we simply press Edit. And over here, this is my British and German keyboard. And we can press the plus to add a huge range of languages. So if I have any children who have come over and they don't speak English as their first language, we do have this option to add those keyboards in there. And once we've added the keyboard, let me press done there. We should have this menu option here in Safari, so I can translate my entire web page to German. And it's pretty much instant, or whichever language you happen to have chosen there. And when you're ready, you can always go back to view the original. It's a really nice, quick and handy tool. Okay, let's move on from Safari. Let's jump that one out of the way. And I'm going to go back to my settings here. We've had a quick look in our settings now at the keyboard options. But if we go a bit further up, I've got my general category, and the next one down is accessibility. And this is where we get the main accessibility features. Now, there's a lot here. So I'm just going to pick out 2 or 3 of the key ones which will support a lot of children in our classes. But accessibility is split into different categories. I've got the vision category, I've got hearing, I've got motor, and I've now got speech as well. But most of the ones that you'll probably find are the ones that you want to try to start with will fall into this vision category. So I'm going to start with spoken content. So in the vision category, it's the 5th one down, spoken content. And what we need to do here is turn on the option that says speak selection and just turn that on there. For now, we don't need to change anything else. We have other options where I can ask it to speak item under the pointer. So if we have children with very low vision, this can be quite useful. But for now, speak selection is good for a lot of children in our classroom. Notice we can change the system voice. I'm using the default voice. It's Daniel at the moment, but we have lots of different accents, and then we have some novelty voices as well. But I'm going to stick with the default Daniel for the moment. And now we've turned that on. If I go back to Safari for a moment, and we're thinking about that task where the children were asked to go through this website, independently pick out those key facts, use a pen and paper, turn it into some just notes of what they think are the important things they want to say before we use Pages to turn it into a full script for our film. Perhaps they come across a word they're not quite sure of. And if we select a word and we right click or control click on this, we have the option to look it up. So we've got a built-in dictionary. We can get a definition of whichever word we want. But we also now, because we've turned this on now, have the option for speech. And if I click Start Speaking,
volcanoes.
Hopefully you heard that over Teams, the Mac will read out that word. So sometimes just being able to hear the word makes a lot more sense to the children if they can't quite work out what's on the screen. Similarly, if we want to hear that in context, I can just select a sentence or maybe a paragraph. We've still got the same speech option.
Volcanoes are Earth's geologic architects.
And we can read out that whole sentence or section, which can be a game changer for some of the children. So really simple, really easy. We've just got that screen reader there, that spoken content. I'm doing it in a website. It doesn't have to be a website. It's anywhere that there's text. So it could be a Pages document or a Word document, a Keynote file. It could be an email. It could be an iMessage. It could be anything like that. It could be a PDF of resources that we've sent. It could be an ebook. It all works in the same kind of way. Now we've turned that option on. Now, just going full circle with that spoken content, let's just minimize Safari for a moment. And I'm going to bring up a blank Pages document. And while we get the Mac to read out the content, we can do the exact opposite. I can speak to the Mac and it can transcribe what I'm saying. This is one of those dictation features. So we have this option there. Anywhere where I've got a text input, I can use the cursor now and I can speak and it will transcribe whatever I'm saying. But we do need to turn this feature on first. So let's leave Pages in the background. I'm going to pull up my settings again. And we were here in accessibility. Let's just go back down in our left-hand side. We're going to go back down to the keyboard options. This is where we've just been a few moments ago. We had a look at adding the extra languages in here. But just below that, we have the option for dictation. And we need to turn it on. So just turn this option on for dictation here. It will give you the option to just check your microphone input if you've got different interfaces. I'm using my built-in microphone on my Mac at the moment. But the bit we need to think about is this shortcut option. How do we access it? So I've got my shortcut here set to press the Control key twice. So the corner key, the very left-hand corner key on my physical keyboard, I can tap that twice and it will enable dictation temporarily. I do have options. It could be a function key. It could be a command key. Do whatever you want. You could create a custom key depending on what you want. I'm going to leave it on the Control key. So if I now go back, I've got that turned on. I've got my shortcut. I can double tap the Control key. This is the dictation feature. Full stop. New paragraph. This is really quite simple. Full stop. And I'll tap Control there again to do it. You'll notice it only did the formatting once I'd finished that dictation. It waits to hear it all in context. So we've got that formatting structure there. Now, you'll also notice I verbalized the grammar there. So I said full stop or new paragraph. macOS has auto grammar built into it. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good at working out where commas and full stops go. But with my teacher head on, I want the children to actively think about the grammar. So I want them to verbalize it. If they speak out the grammar, I know the dictation feature is going to get it right, but also I know they've thought about it and it makes them think about breaking it up. We've all been there, children writing really long sentences. So just making them actively speak the grammar option there is a really, really nice feature. So I would encourage them to verbalize the grammar. But I've done that in Pages, could be anywhere I've got a cursor, I can use that dictation feature. So really quite a powerful tool, that spoken content and the dictation features. Now let's go back to our settings and let's go back up to accessibility we're still in this vision category. We've used the spoken content option there. Let's go to the one slightly above this. This is the display options. And this is a really nice one. Now, this is one that you need to try on your devices, because some of these accessibility features are what Apple refer to as a personal feature. It's a feature for me and my Mac. It's not for my Mac and the rest of the classroom who are watching it if I've got my Mac connected to a big screen, or in our case, everyone else watching this on Teams or even YouTube afterwards. So it won't copy these settings, it won't reflect these settings on the external display. We'll do it on my device alone. So do try this if you've got a Mac with you at the moment. But under accessibility, we've got our option here. So we've gone to display, and we've got lots of options here. I've got the options to invert the colors. I've got smart, classic colors. Smart means it won't change things like the photographs and videos and so on. I've got options to reduce motion blur. I'm not going to go through these. A lot of these are fairly self-explanatory. What I want to do, though, is go down a little bit further, and I want to find the color filters. And these are really powerful. Now, we've got a set of colored pencils here. This is purely to demonstrate how the Mac is currently displaying color, and we have options to change it by applying a color filter. Now, remember, doing it on my device, it's not necessarily going to do it on the reflected screen. So do try this option here. But if I turn my color filters on, I have different filter types. And mine at the moment is set to grayscale. So my whole Mac now has gone kind of black and white. It's gone into grayscale. So if you're working with children who have low color vision, which does happen, it's more common than we think, this makes a massive difference when they're watching videos or whether they're looking at images. So we can reduce the color there by changing the Mac to grayscale. Now, we also, going a bit further down this, we have three options here where we can add a color filter here for red, green, green, red, or blue, yellow. And these are primarily for colorblind children. So if I select red, green, I have a little intensity slider. If we're not colorblind, it's probably worth just changing this and just for now putting it on high, just so we can compare the difference. But my first pencil, to me, I'm not colorblind, so to me that first pencil was red. But if I am colorblind and I can't see the reds, maybe I can't see that red spectrum. But all I'm doing here is saying anything that's in that red spectrum, we're just shifting the color slightly and making it to what I see now is a pinky purple color. And if I can't see reds, I can probably see that pinky purple color. So it won't necessarily be an accurate color, but there's color there and it makes the images quite vibrant. I've been working with staff doing this where people have literally leapt back and said, wow, this Mac screen's just popped. I can really see this color, or that flower's blue. Really makes a difference to a lot of people. We quite possibly don't have the intensity on full. We're just doing it for the moment, so you can see the difference when you're trying this. But we have the option there, and you'll notice the red green has changed the reds. Similarly, if I change the greens, you'll notice my greens are changing. And likewise, with the blue yellow, it will affect the blues over here. So we've got the options here to change the effect of the color blindness filters. Now, the last one, though, is the one you'll probably use the most, and that's the color tint. And you're used to this. This is the kind of thing we use for dyslexia, or even Ehlers syndrome as well. We put a colored gel over a book, those colored pieces of plastic, or maybe we print out handouts on different colored pieces of paper. So really useful. We can add a digital gel, a digital filter to the screen. And again, I've got an intensity slider and I can change the color as well. So I've got options to change the color of our filter. And depending what we want to do, if we know the children have been tested and we know a pink filter works or a blue filter works or a yellow filter, we can set those colors. If we just suspect it might be up, there's nothing wrong with experimenting with these different colors and different intensities and seeing how much this difference makes to the children. So those color filters, particularly the color tints, can be a game changer for some of the children, can be a massive benefit for being able to work with those. And there's my spectrums. They're the different colors I can select for my color filters. So really useful. Those color filters are brilliant. Okay, let's jump back. So there's our accessibility features. There's our vision category. We've had a look at spoken content. We've had a look at display. I'm just going to mention Zoom. We did touch on this in the last webinar on the Mac, but it is a really useful feature, and I've been using it throughout this session here. And as a teaching tool, this is great. Also, as an accessibility tool, some really nice features. Now, I've got two options turned on here. So the first one I've got here is use the trackpad gesture to zoom. So if you are on a laptop and you've got the trackpad in front of you, turn this option on here, and it tells us how this works. We do need to learn this gesture, which says double tap. We've got 3 fingers and double tap on the trackpad. So let me just do that. So if I put my mouse over this text here, and then on my trackpad, double tap, it zooms in. Double tap again to zoom out. Really quick and easy to zoom in and zoom out of areas. If I want to change the zoom level, I double tap with 3 fingers and hold, and I can push up, and I can change the zoom level. So a really quick and easy way. Even if you've just got a web address displayed and the children ask how to spell it, you can put the mouse over it and double tap, and it just makes it easier for them to see on the screen. So as a teacher, I use it all the time. When I've got my Mac plugged into the big screen, zoom in on a certain area. When I'm doing these webinars, I zoom in there. So if you're using a laptop, brilliant. Now, the other one I've got turned on here is this option here to use the scroll gesture with modifier keys. So I've turned that one on, and I've set my modifier key to the control key again. So like the dictation, but I'm going to hold it down this time. And this just means if I am using a mouse, or I've got a trackball here with a scroll wheel on, I can just hold down control on my keyboard and then use the scroll wheel on my mouse to set my different zoom levels. So again, really quick, if I'm just saying, just have a look at this. Really makes a difference for those children who maybe sat at the back of the class, because we've got a big screen now. We've zoomed in on these are really quite small features sometimes on a screen. So really, really useful. Notice as well, we've got these options for zoom style. I'm using full screen zoom at the moment, but sometimes picture in picture is quite cool, depending on the children you're working with. If I do the same now, instead of being the full screen, look, it does it in a little window, which can be quite nice. Or a split screen does it at the top of the screen. So you're not kind of just disrupting the main display, you're just seeing it up there at the top. So different options depending on the preference of the children you're working with. I tend to use full screen, but up to you. So a really powerful tool that I would leave that one turned on all the time, and just use it whenever you've got your computer plugged into the big screen. Okay, good. So we've had a look at our vision category ones there. These are the main ones I think you'll use a lot of the time. These support a lot of the children that we work with. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit further, and I'm going to pick out the option here under audio, because this is an interesting one. I've had a lot of conversations with different teachers in schools about this one. And audio gives me options to kind of change the way headphones work. I've got my headphone accommodation, so I can move stereo sounds through just to one ear or the other. But the one I want to highlight is this one here on background sounds. And this is worth looking at, because if you get a spare 10 minutes, just do a web search at some point on dark noise, or we call it brown noise in the UK, but the general term is dark noise, and ADHD, or dark noise and autism, and you'll find pages and pages and pages of research into how these two are linked. And dark noise is it's a type of static noise, that kind of hiss noise that we get. We get white noise, and white noise is very balanced. Sometimes we call it balanced noise as well. It means we've got equal frequencies, low, mid, and high frequencies. It's our typical static sound. We get bright noise, which has more of the high frequencies, and we get dark noise, which has more of the low frequencies. It's dark noise where you'll find all the research into the link between that, and particularly ADHD and spectrum of autism as well. But what happens with this is that if we play this, and over a sustained period, if we leave it playing in the background or on headphones for 15, 20 minutes, after a while, our brains naturally filter it out. It's still there, it's physically blocking the sound in our headphones, but we don't really notice it. Our brain kind of switches off to it. And this is great for allowing children to have that on the headphones while they're working, because it lets them concentrate on what's happening. It makes it a bit like wearing noise cancelling headphones. It blocks out everything around us. We don't really notice it, but it lets me focus a bit more on the work in front of me. So do that's a quick version. Do look it up and do a bit of reading about this. But anecdotally, dozens and dozens of teachers have said this really works and it is a game changer for some of those children. So do experiment with that option there for background sound. So those are the key features I wanted to pick out in this session, just for that broad brush approach that supports a lot of the children we work with. Now, I'm going to go back and feel free to switch this one off here, but I'm going to just try and see whether Apple Classroom is going to work for me again here, because it's a little bit disappointing if it doesn't work while we're doing this live on Teams. So let me just create a new class. Let me try that, because we did this earlier and it all works fine, but it's just, there we go, it's working now. It's just having one of those little kind of moments. It's always going to do it. Once we press record and do this live, that's when it's going to do it for us. But I've never had a problem with it before, either on the iPad or the Mac. So we'll see what happens there. So I've created my new class. So imagine I've met my new class in September. I've set this up for them. That's the only time I need to do that when I'm working with that particular class. So I'm going to open my class. I'm going to launch my class, and I've got no students in yet, but I've got my iPad here. So I'm going to invite the students, and at this point my Mac's sending out a Bluetooth signal saying in the local area there's a new classroom here, and that means that I'm not getting students from the other side of the school. But on my iPad or Mac, I'm going to go to the settings, and because my Mac is shouting out there's a new class, there's a signal there saying there's a new class. Over on the settings, this is the category that's got the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth in. A new option has just appeared that's called Classroom, showing me this class here. And this is built in from the student side, it's built into iOS. So we have the app installed on our teacher device, but on the student device, it's built into iOS. And now I've got that shouting out, it's popped up on Classroom in settings. I've got the option here to add that class, the MCC webinar today. So I'm doing that, and it's asking me now to enter my name and that PIN code that Classroom has given me. So let's put in, for this one, it's a random one, so 6675. And when I press add, there I am, I've popped up on my class. And if I've got 25, 30 children, they'll all pop up there as well. Now, they're not actually in the class yet. This is another check for me as a teacher to say, these really are the children in my class and the ones I want to see what they're doing on their device. So when I'm happy, I'm going to press add. And there I am. I've just got one student, that's me, but I could have the full class as we go. And the nice thing about Classroom is it lets me see what the children are doing. I can go give them that extra support. I can see what they're doing. It's like having extra TAs looking over the children's shoulders. And it's telling me now, I've got this little icon here, it's telling me without looking at the children's devices that this child, or me in this case, is still in settings. If I close the app on my iPad, I've gone back to the home screen, it tells me exactly what I'm doing on this device. And this will be the same for the whole class. If I open up, say, iMovie, it tells me instantly what's happening on that device there. So I've got a really nice, quick, easy way of seeing what the children are doing. And what's even better is I've got a series of buttons along the top of the screen. And I'm going to pick out the core ones to start with. Let's go with this one here, the one that's got the circles on here. And I'm on the circles option. That shows me the student names, a little icon at the moment. But if I tap it there, it's going to show me a live screen. I've got a thumbnail preview of the actual screen. So if I close it on my iPad, and I'll go and open up something else, let's open up GarageBand. It's showing me straight away what the children are doing, and I can see exactly where we are on those devices. It's opened up a synthesizer there. It even tells me over on the left-hand side what apps my class have got open at the moment. So I've got these options to see what the children are doing on their device. I've got a few other options here. I've got this option with a little eye and the strike through. A nice option, all it does is close all the apps. So if you've got a class full of the children working on their device, I can press this button and it will simultaneously close the apps and return all the children to the home screen. Likewise, I've got the speaker. So there's a few apps which have a little bit of a theme tune. Playgrounds, if you've used Swift Playgrounds for teaching coding, brilliant app. There's some really nice lesson plans. It also has a lovely little theme tune all the way through, which is great when you're working on playgrounds at home. But if you've got 25 children doing it simultaneously and they're not quite in sync, and it sounds less nice in a classroom environment. So I can just mute all those, turn the sound off. They can turn the sound back up, but I've got the option to mute it. Now, the one which is really nice, and we've all been there when we said to the children, we've had a great lesson, we're working on the iPads, put your iPads down, I want to tell you the next instruction. And there's always some children who are carrying on working and trying things. And we do other things, we say put your iPad face down, all those kind of things. But this is just another tool in that box where it's I press this button, it will lock my device. And you'll see there, but my iPad now has got a padlock on the screen, and there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck with that iPad now until the teacher comes along and presses that padlock again, and it will unlock the devices. And then I can go straight back to being able to use my iPad. Let's unlock it. We can bring up our iPad again there. So as a teaching tool, being able to lock the device is quite nice. We've also got a couple of other options here. I've got a Safari icon, and we've all been there. Well, we've said to the children, go to this web address, and we spell it wrong, we put it big on the screen. I could just open a website for the children. It has to be a website I've bookmarked, but once I've bookmarked it, I can get to my bookmarks, click on it, I've checked the website, safe, it's fine, click it, and it will just automatically open on the class iPads. So a really nice tool. And likewise, I could do the same for apps. I could open the apps for the children's behalf, particularly with the younger children. This is really useful. So I could select my app, click it, and it would open on the children's device. Also notice we've got the option down here, locking app after opening. That would mean I could open up Book Creator, for example. They could use everything they like in Book Creator, but they couldn't close it to go and play games or watch something on YouTube. They're stuck in that app. It also means, that's great sometimes for just keeping children on task if we need that with certain children, but we also have the option there for thinking about controlled assessments. Can we use that iPad now to support some kind of assessment that we're doing that we don't want them to go and Google the answer, for example? So really nice tools there. And I've done that for my whole class. If I've got a whole group of children on there, I can set groups. I've got the option to create groups, and I can do things independently between groups. And likewise, I can do this to individual devices. So I could navigate just one child to a website, or I could view full screen what that children's doing. Maybe I've set a writing task, and I think, oh, what's that child doing at the back of the class and busily typing away? I can just jump in and have a look remotely of what they're doing on the screen. So I've got a couple of nice options. I also have the ability to take over AirPlay as well. So I can then AirPlay for the children to the main screen. It's one of those things in a classroom. AirPlay is brilliant, but if you ask the children to do it, it always seems to take them longer than it should do while they put the code in. I can just do it for them. So it's really quick and easy to control that. It means, in fact, I can set a password and not give them it because I'm controlling it from there. So those options there are really quite nice. Now, the last trick that Apple Classroom has up its sleeve is that my class is active. I can leave that in the background. I can always jump in and see what's happening. When I've finished, I do need to press the More button, and I'm going to end the class. And it will tell me all the apps that my class have used here. So if I know we've been working on GarageBand and iMovie, fine. But if YouTube pops up and we've not been using that, I might think, actually, who was in there? So I can click on that app, and it will tell me which student was using it. And this is a timeline of that lesson. I've got this little period when I was active in that app, but I can see how much time they were spending on that app. And if I think, hang on a second, if they were in that app, what else did they do in that lesson? Well, if I click on the individual learner, I get a little bit of a breakdown of every app that they used and how long they spent on it. So I can see if there's a big grey area, why were you off task there? Or maybe that was teach talk. Maybe they were listening to me, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe they just weren't on task. So I can see what's doing there. This doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't save. And in fact, when I press done, that's gone. But if I do want to use it to maybe have a word with the parents, screenshot it, and we've got that option. And then we're done. And then the next week when that class come back, my class is already there. I don't need to recreate it. I just launch it from there. And that's kind of Apple Classroom, really. That's the main things it does there, and really useful just to kind of give those children that bit of extra support, and I can quickly see what's happening there. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there. That was just a bit of a taster of some of those key accessibility features of things which are quick and easy to use and how you can work with these in your classroom. you've got any questions, get in touch with us, and hopefully we can help out and maybe even come into your school and support some of the teachers with this type of thing. But that's a start anyway. We've had a look at some of those. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to hand back over to Beth. And thank you very much, everyone.